Have you ever been a 70-year-old man who, after the death of his wife, slowly loses the ability to sleep all night and possibly as a result, or possibly not, began to see hallucinations and different auras and things around people, and then was embroiled in this almost eldritch horror type story and, following that to its conclusion? Does that sound like you? Well, if it does, you might be Ralph Roberts in Stephen King's Insomnia. Absolute Stephen King jam fest. If you like the way Stephen King writes characters, I think you will quickly fall in love with Ralph and Lois and our other characters who I hesitate to name. Just, I don't want to spoil things. But anyway, my point is that if you like the way Stephen King writes his characters, you will enjoy this book more than likely. As I said before, our protagonist is the around 70-year-old Ralph Robertson, who, following the death of his wife, begins to hallucinate as a result of insomnia. And without spoiling too much of the story, of course, these hallucinations are not necessarily just benign happenings in his brain. There may or may not be this whole other world that he's tapping into, and things get pretty spooky, they get pretty dark, and they get pretty profane. A lot of profanity in this book by the villainous types. Book was very, very good. Gave this book 4 stars. Again, my gripe with this book is that it's a hair long. I think there may be some points where Master King could have shaved a few lines or a few paragraphs or maybe 100 pages off of this book throughout. Maybe just a little bit less dialogue or whatever. The character is finally just going to do things. But if you put yourself in these people's shoes, you would probably spend a lot of time talking about what was going on. I was enthralled with the story. I will say the story went into such a direction that I did not expect. I was almost disappointed because I just didn't. It was just not where I was expecting it to go, and again, I say without spoiling, but without spoiling too much stuff, it's just kind of goes in more of a fantasy type direction than I expected, and that doesn't make it a bad book. It was a very good book. I really enjoyed it. This was one of those books with a solid conclusion. I know Stephen King gets a lot of flack about his endings. I think this book ended quite well, if it did take a while to get there. If you like old people like I do, if you like getting into their heads, if you like experiencing not only the horror of violence and murder and otherworldly horrors, if you also like the psychological horror of growing old, I think you'll enjoy this book. Anyway, thanks for watching.